actually, this is Kendra back with Truist TV, and I'm back with another video. I wanted to break down how you can do the research yourself if you want to be able to do this research to find out. Of course, it's a lot of reading. There's articles, documents. Yes, you can research Googles. You can order books online. But even in those books online, even in some of these articles, you can find lies, right? Because we know that people like to alter and distort history for the victor's benefit, right? And who's the victor? The colonizers. So these are some of the ways that I find facts or factualize and support the evidence in which I find out about who the American Indian is, or who's a brown skin race, so forth and so on. So oftentimes I use process of elimination, right? And what do I mean by process of elimination? Things that are not said. Things that are not said. I've said this in previous videos. I kind of X out things that are not said, and I eliminate. Well, you didn't say this. You didn't say this. You know what I mean? And I'll give you an example. For instance, people said that they brought over African slaves, but nobody tells you how did the African slaves learn how to plant tobacco and how to plant cotton. Now, people would lead you to believe the Europeans and the Spanish taught this to the slaves, but there's no writings that support that. As a matter of fact, there are writings saying that the Spanish, the Portuguese, and the European were dying of starvation because they did not know how to cultivate the land. So how, if you didn't know how to cultivate the land, did you teach Africans how to cultivate the land in which you were starving to death because you didn't know how to cultivate it? And then there's also no evidence that Native Americans, supposed Native Americans or Indians, taught Africans how to cultivate the land. So how did these so-called Africans know how to cultivate lands that are foreign to them? Right? Because the soil in Africa is not the same soil that's in America. So if you take the soil in Virginia and you try to plant an African seed in it, you got to know, first of all, if you try to take a seed from Africa and plant it in America, there's a science to planting. You got to know when to harvest. You got to know when to water it. You got to know how much sunlight. This is not something that an African would know how to do coming from Africa to the America. The soil is completely different. The fruits and vegetables are completely different. There are some fruits and vegetables you cannot find in Africa. So in order for them to cultivate the land, they would have to learn first how to plant, harvest, water, how much sunlight and nutrients that the sugar cane need, the tobacco need, and any other fruit or vegetable or any other type of plant that they were supposed to be cultivating and harvesting. They would have to know how to do that. They would have to have that understanding in science. And since we know that nobody taught any African that, because they would have wrote it. I've never seen one book that said American Indians taught Africans how to plant and farm. Not one. And this is allegedly the year 2024, and I've yet to see a book written like that. So that's how I use process of elimination. It's a lot of what is not said. Number two, how many white men does it take to subdue tens of thousands of Africans? How many? If you read old articles, to get 3 black men to lynch them, it took 5,000 for 3 black men. You can read lynching articles all the time. I have a couple of them where they were lynching black men in America, and it took 5,000 for 3. So can I ask you, how many white Slavic Europeans, right, because that's what they really are, Slavic Europeans, did it take to subdue that many so-called black men? How many? Please feel free to write down below in the comment section to answer any of these questions. If you got any knowledge, please go ahead. I'm not afraid to learn. Each one teach one, right? Not to mention, If slaves were beaten, branded, and whipped and forced to be on plantations from the whole duration of their life, can somebody tell me how slaves who can't read, write, and are illiterate can now revolt and jump ship and be a runaway slave? They can't read. How would they know where to go? They can't read a map. In order for you to escape, you would have to know where you're going. Harriet Tubman. In order for you to escape, you would have to know where you're going. And if you're a slave who came from Africa, who was beat, branded, and whipped and forced to work every day of your life on one plantation, even if you were sold to another plantation in a different state, there would be no way for you to honestly know how to escape and run and not get caught. How would Harriet Tubman, let's hypothetically speak, how would she know how to get from, let's say, Maryland to Philadelphia? She can't read. She can't write. Who is she talking to? Because all the other slaves couldn't read and write neither, allegedly. So who's giving them the map? How are they doing this? Well, ain't nobody say that a white man wrote the map up for them. And even if you wrote up a map for them, they can't read. They can't read. I'm in America, born and raised my whole life. I'm familiar with driving places that I have been. But if you drop me off in the middle of New York City, which I've been born and raised my whole damn life, in New York and Manhattan, I could not find my way back out of it without GPS. And we have GPS. Do you hear me? So imagine a foreigner being dropped in the middle of, and you got to understand, back in the day, these plantations were surrounded by greenage. There was land, farm everywhere. How is she or he doing it? Explain. You can't. There's no books explaining it. These are the things, this is the process of elimination that I use, if I'm using that accurately, to root out the stories that have been given to us in history. I also talked about the conditions of the alleged slave boats. If I talked about this in a previous video, if we were to be packed like sardines on this slave boat that is uninsulated, because insulation in boats weren't invented then. So it's an uninsulated boat. It's a wooden vessel. It is going over the Atlantic Ocean, which is one of the coldest oceans, right? Below zero freezing temperatures, and they come from a hot climate. And they're naked and they're strapped together. I talked about how, number one, they would all die from freezing to death, because they're at the bottom of the boat, the coldest part of the boat. Nobody ever said they had installation and blankets or ran a fire down there. It set the boat on fire. Wood is highly flammable, right? So how did you keep them warm? What did you feed them? Oftentimes people said they fed them slop, threw food at them. Okay, so most of them, not only if they didn't die from freezing to death, from frostbite, they died from starvation. They were on this, and then they talked about the sea bearing, how long they were on these, how many sea bearing days. And they would be like 6 months to a year. Well, if they didn't get caught in the ocean gyres, which is also in the Atlantic Ocean, which if you get caught in it, you'll go around in a circle until you're able to navigate yourself out of it. And due to the fact that they don't have sonar or GPS, you're talking about a wind sail and a compass. So you're in that thing for a while until you can navigate yourself out of the ocean gyres that are in the Atlantic Ocean. Thank you, Dan Calloway. So I want people to understand, this is how, also word terminology. I was talking about books. You see how you get articles and you get books and you get different books? Some of these books have been, and if you ever see this book, the words of a book being revised, edited, new edition, edited edition, that means that the word terminologies, even some of the pictures, are fictitious. They are lies, fabricated, and they're made up. All right, they give you a lot of conceptual art. And in this, I'll for instance, I'll give you an example. The word I was saying this the word Negro. Now, we know that we can. If you saw my previous video, the word Negro was used for anybody. Let me see if I could pull it up. The word Negro was used for anybody with a dark hue of complexion. Okay? The word Negro in the Oxford Dictionary was used for anybody with a dark hue of complexion. Hold on, let's see if I can go find it. Y'all, give me a little bit of minutes. I can't find it, but check out the other video. My previous video has it. But anyway, we know that they called Negro to anybody with brown hues of complexion. So if anytime you read a book and the book says, and a book is calling people Negro, meaning a nationality, that book has now, it's a rewrite because the word Negro was not considered a nationality for people until the 1924 Racial Integrity Act, along with black and colored. These two word terminologies were not written as a nationality or a race of people until the 1924 Racial Integrity Act. So any book that was allegedly to be written prior to the 1924 Racial Integrity Act that has a nation of people being called Negro, color, or black, okay, that book has been rewritten, and that is not that book is fake, and it has been rewritten to fit a narrative, okay. And so these are the ways that I do research, right? I use a lot of I look through a lot of Oxford dictionary, old dictionary terminology. I go through the word swarthy. You know, we see this a lot. The word swarthy and how it was used, and how they would call Europeans swarthy, and people would lead you to believe a swarthy man is a white man with dark hair and blue eyes and black eyes, and that's why he was called tall, dark, and handsome. That's also lies, right? You would never look at a white man and call him tall, dark, and handsome because his hair is black, right? That's also a part of the lies that they tell, right? And we know swarthy to just mean that his complexion. And what is complexion? To the face, this hue. When you first see somebody, their complexion, okay, is of the skin color of their skin, right? And so it'll let you know that that person complexion, that European, was dark skinned, right? He was swarthy, he was tawny, he was copper color, all meaning of various shades of brown. And so this is how I do research. I do process of elimination. I go through old word terminology. I also go through food, old practices. Does that person who claimed to be old cultures, let me say, does that people who claim to be of the American Indian, do they practice some of the same cultural practice, right? Like for instance, if you go to the Bonaparte, murals, and you see in Bonampak, Mexico, that a lot of the Mayans wore locks. They wore locks. Not only did they wear locks, they wore specific looking locks, right? Wild locks. Locks that are meshed together certain ways that if you look at the so-called modern day Mayans, the Mexicans that you see that are now in Mexico, they don't wear locks. They don't wear head wraps. You see the women wearing head wraps. You see the women wearing certain things big hoop earrings, big gold chains, pearls. These things are associated with the Mayans and many other ancient civilizations that was in North and South America. And you oftentimes do not see this practice by the people who claim to still be culturally connected to the ancient peoples of that time, right? They're saying that they still got it, but these practices are completely different. I was talking even in a previous video about the Native Americans' attire. You know, American Indians didn't wear what they wore. Moccasins has absolutely nothing to do with American Indians. Even the clothing in which you see the Native Americans wear, the animal skins, American Indians didn't dress like that. The head feathers, yeah, but even the way some of them wear the feathers on their head, inaccurate. But they think they can take a Siberian costume, like a Siberian cultural clothing, with because that's Siberian. Those moccasins, the way they wear their clothes, that's Siberian, that's Mongolian, right? And then they throw a feathered headdress on, and then they tell you that's Indian culture, but that's a lie. That's actually a melting pot of Mongol, Filipino, Sri Lankan, Indonesian, Siberian, and Mongol culture meshed together, and then all they do is throw some feathers on their head and say they're Indians. Look at their culture. Is it as any of the ancient cultures? No. But there are people that are in America who, even unbeknownst to themselves, still do as the American Indians do, from the way their locks are worn, from the wrapping of their hair, the bonnets, the hoop earrings, the gold chains. I know of people who still do that. I read an article about American Indians where they say these Indians, they live off fowls and they live off the birds in America. I know, fried chicken. They eat corn. The Indians were known for cornbread. That is an estate. No matter where you go, chicken and cornbread, grits. These are, and Indians were known for their porridge. These are known staples in a house of supposed black folk, not to mention the uncanny resemblance to every artifact ever found of American Indians from America to Europe and Germany. I mean, if you see the old depictions of the Blackamoors, the Blackamoor Indians, every kind of the Tobacco Indians, the Tainos, the Arawaks, if the Honduras, the Aboriginal people of Honduras, if you see these people, it is funny how we have the same look, cultural similarities. I mean, it's the resemblance is uncanny. Do you understand? Even the O positive blood in which the Mayans were known to have with the malaria mutation, which is sickle cell anemia. A lot of us either have traits of sickle cell anemia or have sickle cell anemia. Right? My sister, she has the trait of sickle cell anemia. So does my brother. It skipped a generation. I think my father has it. This was found in the Mayans. And if you look at my other previous video, you will see where I put up a picture of a Lankotan Mayan who was a dark-skinned man with locks, as depicted in Bonampak, Mexico. Do you see how I do it? So these are the ways that you can determine. And why I don't care to share it, because they can't change it. It was never put out. Even if they wrote a book now or said the book was ancient, even if they try to tell you, oh, we found the Catilda boat, it would be crap, because nobody can prove that boat even existed. Nobody can prove any of these slave boats. The manifests don't even exist. I even wrote, listen, I'm doing another thing. I know I said this. I got my own family genealogy that I looked up, and some of the research that I've been doing on my own genealogy that I'm going to do a video that is going to come up soon. So anyway, this is how I do my research, y'all. This is Kendra with Trust TV. Look at this Indian school. Look at this Indian school. Black Indians, parents, black Indians built their own schools, hired and paid teachers, and then asked for additional government aid in 1866. Now, I want to point something out. Now, we see all these Indians right here, and then you see these Mongol children. Again, acclamation. They came in and were grafted into our Indian homes, not the other way around. We own them. They did not own us. As I said, if you read Asian Slaves in Colonial Mexico, from Chino to Indian, you will then know how these peons, these Chino slaves, these negritos became American Indian. Anyway, this is Kendra with Truest TV. Stay up, stay blessed. Put God first above all else, y'all. Peace out. Bye. Make sure y'all like, share, and subscribe too. And make sure y'all hit that thumbs up and the notifications. Also, leave a comment down below if you have any questions. And if I can't answer, feel free to answer whoever's in a comment section. If you do have the answers, I don't know everything. Each one teach one. All right, stay up, stay blessed. Put God first above all else. Peace out. Bye.